What's up everybody, Trinity here, and welcome back to the Second Street Marvel. In today's video, I'm going to be reviewing Goblin Red Death. This is a one-shot issue. Now before I get into that, please make sure you subscribe, click the little bell and all of that good stuff, as it helps us here on the channel battle the agents of Hydra who are constantly out there trying to bury us in that YouTube algorithm. Your help is greatly appreciated. Now, as I said, today I'm going to be reviewing Goblin Red Death. This is a one-shot issue being published by Marvel Comics, and this book has 3 different stories in it. And those stories are, the first one is Great Responsibility, written by Rob Fee, with the artist being Pete Woods. The second story is Big Mouth, written by Sean Ryan, and the artist is Pete Woods on this story as well. And the third story is The Wayside Darkness, with the writer being Patrick Gleason, pencils done by Ray Anthony Height. The inks are by Mark Deering and Dono Sanchez Almara, with Proto Bunker are on colors, and it's lettered by VC's Joe Sabino. And I'm going to go ahead and show you all those credits right there. And there's actually some credits over here as well for the people who did the recap page here as well for this particular book. And those recap page artists are Chris Stevens and Jason Keith. So, as I said, this is a 3-issue or a 3-story issue. The first one being Great Responsibility. Here we see at the very beginning, we see Norman Osborne kind of having a conversation seemingly with himself, but obviously he's talking with the Red Goblin about they're kind of making a deal about going out there, you know, because Norman Osborne, you know, he never wants to be at a loss of power, and you know, after being depowered basically by Peter Parker, getting the serum out of him and everything for the Green Goblin, he unleashes this the Carnage Symbiote and becomes the Red Goblin. And he's sitting there having a conversation about wanting to go out and feeding. And you know, Norman is kind of like, man, we can't go out there and just be killing innocent people. We got to make sure it's bad people, you know. And like, we're gonna keep this down to a minimum. He's trying to barter with him here and make a deal. Like okay, like let's work together here, you know, like because you can rationalize with just like insane symbiotes, right? So, you know, Red Goblin's like, yeah, okay. Carnage's like, yeah, okay, yeah. Well, all that stuff, yeah. Let's agree to that. So we'll just go after bad people, and we see, you know, here soon after he finds a very bad person to go after right here. You know, we see he decides like, you know what? Let's go after this drug dealer. So they end up following this drug dealer to take care of him, because nobody's going to miss just another worthless drug dealer. And they were kind of scoping the area out, looking for the right person. So they ended up following this guy, and you know, the whole time Norman Osborn's trying to rationalize with him, saying, hey, you know, let's wait till this guy gets inside, not out here in public. So like, Carnage doesn't wait. He goes ahead and attacks this drug dealer, and it turns out somebody ends up seeing him. And you know, Norman's like, man, see, now we've got, you know, innocent people who've basically he says now we're leaving witnesses. And Carnage says who says we're leaving witnesses? And so he chases down this witness. He gets inside this apartment building, ends up slaughtering and killing a whole bunch of people along the way. And pretty much ends up, you know, burning down this whole apartment building and killing a bunch of people. While in the end, there is a witness to it all in the first place altogether. So again, it was a pretty graphic and horrific tale of Norman just, you know, making a dumb deal with the Carnage Symbiote. And then the next story here, gosh, is called Big Mouth. Again, that one's written by Sean Ryan and Pete Woods. And we can see this story opens up with Norman Osborne walking down the street, having a conversation with himself, and then just kind of getting noticed by an old friend. And you know, so he's sitting there trying to ignore the guy, and the guy, you know, is like hey, just kind of pestering him. And you know, he's sitting there having a conversation with Carnage, and Carnage is like, hey man, like let's just kill this guy. You know, and Norman's like, no man. So it turns out being somebody that Norman knew. They kind of walk down the street having a conversation. The conversation that Norman was having with Carnage at the time was like, man, who is Spider-Man? Like, we need to find out who Spider-Man is, no matter what. So he's having this conversation with himself, comes across this guy, and this guy, you know, like Carnage wants to feed. So they end up taking this guy basically to this abandoned storefront and end up killing him. And then they end up chasing down. They end up going and finding coming into the offices of J. Jonah Jameson is where he ends up at, to try to find out who Peter Parker is. And so they end up attacking J. Jonah Jameson and telling him, basically, you're gonna tell us who Spider-Man is. We know you know. And if you've been following current Marvel continuity, you know that J. Jonah Jameson very well knows who Spider-Man is. And that's pretty much it for the second story. Is we see that somebody there, Norman Osborn is trying to figure out who Spider-Man is, so he can get to him and kill him. And that's pretty much it for the first story. Now the second story, or the third story here, I guess, is called The Wayside Darkness. And this one kind of opens up where we see this father is at this memorial and everything, talking about his kid Eduardo who had gone missing. He'd been missing for a while, and we see that. Then we get the story here where we see that there is it looks like there's some sort of a bus trip or something going on. I don't know that this is a school. I'm not sure what kind of school buses their own kids out, but he was out with this group of kids. This kid Eduardo was out with this group of kids on this bus, and they were heading out to go trick or treating that night. We see Norman Osborn. We flash to Norman Osborn, who is once again having this kind of conversation with himself. And we see that what he's doing is he's found this weakness within his body, within this Carnage Symbiote, and it turns out that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to purge this weakness out, and we can see that weakness is they're saying is just residuals left over of the Venom Symbiote. So he's sitting there doing what he can to purge him, and we can see that he is successful in getting this Venom symbiote purged from his body. And in the meantime, we see these kids on the school bus, and one of the kids is being picked on and being bullied, and ends up getting his headset, his headphones broken. And it was just a pretty bad situation. And basically, then we see that Carnage is on the prowl, looking for a victim. And it turns out what we see here is one of the kids on this bus is little Normie Osborn. Okay, and it turns out Normie has a little bit of that Carnage symbiote in him as well. And this is what I'm guessing would be Harry's child. Who is out on this field trip as well with these kids. And as everything's going on, and the Carnage symbiote wants to feed, and so the little Carnage symbiote that's in Normie Osborn wants to feed, so he ends up attacking the bus driver and killing the bus driver. Well, in the meantime, this kid Eduardo had noticed, and the symbiote begins to attack this kid, and the kid ends up taking off running, and the kid just doesn't have the guts, doesn't have the nerve to go ahead and kill this kid. So he takes the kid home to Norman Osborn, his grandfather Norman Osborn, who is saying why can't you kill him? You got to kill him. This is something you got to do. And the kid, being reluctant, does not want to, but decides okay, he's gonna play along with it and go ahead and go kill this kid. So he goes and tracks the kid down, and the kid who actually had part of this symbiote become part of him as well. And so they end up confronting each other, and they end up getting into a little scuffle, and I'll show you some more of that art right here. They end up getting into this little scuffle, and Normie Osborn ends up letting the kid go. He don't want to have anything to do with the kid. He don't want to hurt the kid. So the kid ends up getting away, making a clean escape, and gets home to his father, but not without that little bit of Venom symbiote here, and that's what we get here at the end of this third story. Altogether, this book didn't seem like it was too much thicker than just your average comic book. Probably a few more pages. I don't know. I'm guessing there's 32 pages or so of story in here. Altogether, this is a one-shot issue. I didn't think it was too bad. Interesting. It's got a parental advisory on there, so it gets graphic. Horrific. With Normie Osborn going through and killing Norman Osborn going through killing some people. Altogether, I didn't think it was too bad. This isn't anything that like I said, it's a one shot, and a whole lot of one shots are just kind of one-off stories. I thought the book was okay. It's not anything I would pull and read, but luckily my local comic book shop, Bases Cards and Comics, right here in Lancaster, California, was nice enough to lend me this book so I could bring you guys this review. So you should go follow them on Instagram or even Facebook, and that's at Bases Cards and Comics. Give them a follow. They don't have an online store or anything. They're not trying to sell you books. They're just an awesome comic book shop, and I much appreciate them lending me this book to bring you guys this review. Like I said, altogether, the art in it was pretty good. The stories here were pretty good, but again, it seems like a kind of timed and dated thing with it happening at Halloween too. But altogether, not a bad issue. If you guys are a fan of Carnage, following the current story going on in Absolute Carnage, or even just a fan of Venom or anything like that, you just want a little one-shot story to read, this might be a good book for you. And I believe this is a $4.99 book. So I don't know. I didn't think it was terrible, but again, not something that I myself would put on my pull list. But that's not up to me. That's up to you. That's why I do this review, is for you. So let me know down in the comments below. Did you read Goblin Red Death? If not, is it something that you might be into? Let's talk about it down in the comments below. That's all I have for this video today, folks. Thank you all so much for tuning into the Second Street Marvel. If you haven't already, please make sure you're subscribed and click that little bell so you get notifications anytime I have uploaded new content or anytime I plan on doing a live video. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you don't, feel free to give it a thumbs down. It's okay, I don't take it personal. But while you're at it, make sure that you share it with a friend and invite them to come hang out with us here on the Second Street Marvel. You all have a very good day. Have a great rest of your week. Happy reading, and we'll see you in the next video. Later.